Hi, everyone. Good to see you. Thanks for spending some time with us today. I recognize a couple of faces and names. So we're talking about delegation today, and notice it's termed as an art because I think it is as much an art as it is a science or a process or a methodology. But I absolutely believe that if we get good at this delegation, we can improve growth in our firm. We can build bigger businesses. We can scale if that's interesting to you. We can also improve the value of our businesses because we reduce dependence on a couple of people or one or more people. And actually, I think we can have more fun. We can improve lifestyle. Maybe we'll do the kind of work we enjoy, or we'll do less work, or we'll have more time outside the office. So, look, I put through a couple of slides here that I'm going to quickly run through, and I've got some questions for you as well. So, I will be asking you to comment in a bit. This is my background. I was an attorney admitted to practice in South Africa in a commercial law firm. I was young and junior in that firm, so I wasn't doing much delegating at all. I was being delegated to, if the truth be told. But I didn't last that long as a lawyer. I moved to Japan, which is where I am right now, although I live in Australia, but I moved to Japan. And I had a series of entrepreneurial ventures in IT, software, and solutions, and in market research and analytics, and in business process outsourcing. Those were the businesses I built. Two were sold to listed companies, a US listed, NASDAQ listed company, and a Japanese listed company, Olympus Camera, you may know of them, and a private equity group out of Hong Kong. And what you might be thinking is, well, what does he know about IT and software development and market research and business process housing? Not much. I'm not a technical expert in any of those fields, but I was pretty good along the way at delegating the important work that we needed to do. So I learned a little bit from that. And since I moved to Australia, I had a period of not doing much at all. But now I've acquired this business called Panalitix, and we advise professional services leaders. So I'm learning from them about a whole range of things, including delegation. So that's my background on this topic. You know, one thing that sometimes disappoints me, I'm sure I wouldn't hear it from anyone on this call because you guys are advanced and organized and sophisticated. But sometimes our clients, they say, you know what? I'm doing a lot of work that doesn't play to my strengths. I'm just not doing the stuff that I'm really good at and that I love to do. I'm doing other kinds of work. We also hear people say, I spend a whole lot of time fixing other people's work. How does that how does that happen? I mean, why don't they do their own work? We're all professionals together. Why do I have to revise and fix other people's work? These are some of the comments I hear from our clients. When we talk about how much we work, I often hear this: we work very long hours. And you know what? It's one thing to work very long hours thinking that, yeah, fine, but it's just temporary. In a year, we'll move on to this new life where I won't have to work those long hours anymore. But often we're not seeing light at the end of the tunnel, right? When does this stop? When do I stop just like doing work, and so many hours? And I don't have time for things outside of work. So some people are more tethered to their work than others, and they're not enjoying the lifestyle. I mean, we work hard to be in professional services, to be in premier firms and all that, but then we should be able to enjoy stuff outside of work, and some people are not. About the rewards, we sometimes hear, wow, there's huge growth opportunities in my firm. Wow, we could just grow this thing. We could double the size. But when do I have time for that? Right? When am I going to have the time to grow this business? I mean, I'm just so busy with my work and my clients, right? So actually, the busyness is actually preventing growth. And some people will say, my business is successful, it's profitable. we're making some money, but not necessarily growing in value. And here, what we mean is if your business is heavily dependent on one or two people, if anyone on this call didn't go to work for 6 weeks, what would happen to your business? In some cases, the businesses would not survive, right? And in some cases, it wouldn't matter as much, right? If it wouldn't matter as much, the business is valuable because it has intrinsic value beyond the behaviors and the contributions of some individuals. So these are things we hear when we talk to people in professional services. I've got a question. We're talking about delegation today, and I'd like to just ask this question to you. We'll just spend a couple of minutes here. I just want a couple of examples. I'm actually going to stop sharing there and see if someone will volunteer something you just don't want to do anymore, something you would love to get out of, a task, a role, some kind of activity that you need to do in your business that you just don't want to do anymore. Would someone volunteer one of those? Otherwise, Rachel will pick on you, and that's scary. So,
I'm
so
7.5 months pregnant as well, so it gets scarier, trust me.
wow, it's particularly scary. Yeah. Would
Uh,
anyone
yeah.
would anyone venture just one thing, one task? I just wish I didn't have to do this. Why do I have to do that? I just don't want to do it anymore. What is that?
Alberto.
Melissa's thinking, Josephina's thinking about admin, about banking, client related, hiring, selling, doing
I'm
invoices.
happy. As
Yep,
I was mentioned, I think
Yeah.
Rachel, you mentioned me. Yeah, that's fine. I know you, so I'm not scared. So no, I think one of the items that is that I don't like to somehow supervise is always the onboarding of a client, because at the end of the day, we need always to have an eye on that, and that's certainly one of the things that I don't like to do um, in my profession.
okay. Onboarding a client. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Why? What don't you like about it?
Well,
What's the
because
name of
be- because basically there is a lot of administrative, like the identification, checking all the ultimate beneficial owner. There are some stuff that they're nice because you're getting a new client, but it's not really something that is interesting, I would say.
Got it. Thank you. What's your name, sir?
Alberto from
Alberto.
Italy.
Thank you, Alberto. That's a really good example because you're saying it's an admin role. It's actually exciting to take on a client, but the actual physical administrative role of onboarding them is dull, uninteresting, and you just don't want to do it. I understand, Alberto. Do we have one more example from someone? Great example, that, by the way. Yes, Melissa.
Hi, I
Hi.
think for me, hello. Being the junior solicitor that I am, I've been qualified 5 years, but I would be quite independent my own way. I don't have a secretary. I do a lot of work on my own, so I probably will have to learn to delegate. But one thing that always makes me nervous is the finances and the accounting. I need to have someone with me to kind of hold my hand through that, even though I've made up invoices, I deal with fees and billing all the time. But if I just had a little bit of extra help, then that would be great for me when I'm in my own practice, if that makes sense.
Good example, Melissa. Are you in a law firm or in an accounting business?
Yes, I am. I'm calling in from Dublin, Ireland, and we're an all services firm in Dublin.
Right. Um, give me an example of a task around the finance function or the accounting function that you're actually involved in. Is it give us an example.
So really, I'm just involved in my own billing, if that makes sense. So I just have to, it's getting used to a new system every single time. It's making sure that things are stacking up. I just have to make sure that my targets are in order. That's very much a personal task that I need to do. But if there's anything to do with like justifying things like on a system, an accounting system, I can be get a bit bogged down with it. I wouldn't be that tech minded either. So it's always it's also a software issue as well. So I just
Okay.
need someone who has tech brain and a bit of a finance brain to kind of help me along with the accounting side. But other than that, it's, if I was a bit more independent, I could do that.
Got it, Melissa. That's a really good example. Thanks for sharing that. So some budgeting, some reporting, some invoicing, some tracking the finances, but it's also a systems question, right? Because you're not as comfortable with the systems you're using. Yeah, those are great examples. And I'm sure that there are a number of other examples. I'm going to go back to my slides if that's okay. Yeah. You're seeing that, right? Okay, so a couple of good examples there, onboarding clients and managing the finances. Let me run through a couple of ideas here. What are we talking about when we're talking delegation? Really simple, right? Someone asks someone else, usually a subordinate, but not necessarily, it could be a colleague, to take on one of those tasks. Hey, can you manage the onboarding for me of this client? Can you manage the finances in our business? Something like that. And of course, they accept, right? So, very simple idea delegation. And you know what strikes me is that I asked someone, a really smart person, some time ago, what is leadership? And they said, leadership is really getting other people to do things. It's the ability to get other people to do things. And I look at the definition of delegation and I look at the definition of leadership, and they're very, very, very similar, aren't they? Right. So what I'm going to argue today is that to be a good leader is often to understand the world of delegation. And that's what we're going to spend a little bit of time on today. By the way, a lot of this is about mindset. Getting good at leadership and delegation is a mindset question. More on that. So here's an idea. What do we get when we delegate? What do our firms, how do they benefit? How do we benefit as individuals? Well, one thing is we make some space in our professional lives. We make some room, right? Because we get something off our plate, and that enables us to do something different. It might enable us to do, if we're not doing that onboarding, how are we going to spend the time? Maybe we'll think about the longer term implications with that client. If we're not doing that finance, maybe we'll spend some more time billing or client work or hiring or strategically, right? So simply we get more productive because we spend our time on different things. And logically, if you think in your businesses, some of you are very good at client related stuff. Some of you are very good technically. Some of you are good at managing. Some of you are good at administratively. And we want to put people in the best roles we can. So people good at finance and software should be doing finance and software. People good at administratively onboarding clients should be doing that. And people good at speaking to clients should be doing that. So there's a better use of skills if we delegate. And here's an interesting idea. Most of us, all of us actually, there was a time where we didn't really know very much, right? When we just entered our careers and we were fresh from studying and we didn't have any experience. But how did we gain our knowledge? How did we do that? Well, we did it because we took on new tasks. So now, if you're in a position to delegate, you have an opportunity to help other people to learn by giving them new tasks, right? If we share work with other people, we're actually training people to get better. And I suspect that most of you learned a lot of what you learned by doing, not because you went to university and learned amazing things. There's a little bit of that, but you learned by doing. So there's the opportunity to transfer knowledge through delegation. And as I said before, our businesses become more valuable when they're not dependent on one or two people. Maybe in some of your businesses, there's only one person who can do that role, talking to the client about X. There's only one person who can understand transfer pricing for some technical question. That's that person. But if we can reduce dependence, we create a more valuable and robust business. So if all of that is true, why is delegating difficult? Why do people have challenges with this? And here is the most frequent answer, which honestly, I don't believe it's the main answer, but I want you to think about these things, please. Well, I don't trust that the work will be done well enough, right? I don't trust that people will get the work done, and then I'm going to have to go and do it myself. And it'll be just quicker if I do it myself. So that's what I'm going to do. And if those people fail, the people I delegate to, it'll reflect badly on me. Now, I accept there is some risk here. There is some risk, but it's then a question of training. You and me, all of us, we took on some roles in the past where we didn't necessarily have all the skills, but we learned how to do it, and we rose to the occasion. But there is a situation where there may be a risk, but this is a more likely answer. It's actually not that easy to delegate. Delegating means going to someone and saying, "Hey, I've got a job for you. It's going to be really fun. It's going to be onboarding the clients administratively. It's going to be great. You're going to have to log them into our system. You're going to have to learn all of their details and make sure you have all that. It's going to be brilliant. And this is how you do it. And you can ask me for some training if you like. And once you've done it, I'm going to say, brilliant job, right? Well, you know what? That takes a particular skill, that leadership role. And sometimes it's just easier to go and do something else, like billable work, or just do the work, do that activity yourself. Working is sometimes easier than leading, but if we want to be leaders in our organizations, we have to get over that and educate other people on what we need them to do. Here's another idea which I think is fascinating, and this was explained to me by some lawyers once. They said, you know what? Here's how professional services work. We show skills when we're young in a particular area. We go and study. We acquire a lot of knowledge through our studies. Then we get into practice and we learn even more. We become experienced. In fact, we become experts and we become comfortable in being experts. We like the fact that we're the one who knows how to do this particular job, this particular role. And then why would we easily pass that on? That's our currency. That's what we have to sell. That's what makes us special. That's what makes us different. And if we ever lose that, what's left? Now, confident business people are saying, yeah, I have plenty more. I can go and I can develop business. I can grow my skills and do other things. But if we lack any confidence, we might say, I want to cling on. I want to hold on to the things that make me special. Here's another thing that makes us afraid to delegate. What am I going to do with the time I free up exactly? Right? What am I going to do with that time? Am I going to go and sell? Am I going to market? Am I going to communicate? Am I going to go and talk to clients? Am I going to hire or develop a strategy or develop some new solutions? For some of you, those are scary. I don't know how to do that. I've never done that before. And so there's a fear of what we would do. Maybe it's just safer to keep doing what we're doing and not get that work off our plate. After all, we're good at it. We know how to do it. So we are a little, sometimes some people are a little afraid of what might happen after we delegate. And then this is a simple idea that in the end, we've heard of, we strive for perfection. That should say perfection, not success. So some people are saying, yeah, but I want this done exactly how I do it. And no one does it exactly how I do it. I want it done that way. And that is the enemy of delegation, because when we delegate, we allow other people to step up and do things in their way. And if you're someone who is saying, no, there's only one way to do this, it's how I've been doing it for 20 years, it's very difficult to encourage delegation. Let me say that I'm not saying that everyone must stop doing their core work and become sales and marketing and communication. I'm not saying that at all. If you are enjoying and having fun doing what you're doing now, you should stick to that. You should continue doing that. However, I often hear people saying those things I said right at the beginning, I'm working too hard, I'm fixing other people's work. And if that's the case, we should consider delegation as an opportunity to move ahead and build better businesses. So I'm going to finish up with a couple of ideas. First of all, what should we delegate? And I was reminded of this the other day. Many of you have seen this Franklin Covey's chart, right? So just think for a second think for a second. I'm sure you've seen this before, but Dr. Covey, divides our work between that which is important and not important, and that which is urgent and not urgent. So if we look in the urgent column, we've got stuff that's deadline driven. There's a transaction underway, and I need to get this contract drafted, and Monday's the deadline, right? Clients are calling us. Maybe there's a crisis. Maybe something's happened that is. So this is really important, often client work, and it's deadline driven. There are other things that we do that are less important, like a colleague coming into your office and say, hey, I'm just wondering, do you know anything about this? Maybe we can have a chat about it. That might not be the best way for you to spend time. Interruptions. Some people write the newsletter and they've been doing it for 5 years. Some people do the company offsite. I'm not saying those are unimportant necessarily, but they might not be the right things for you to do. So, but they're still urgent because they've got to be done by next Tuesday or next Friday, right? So we have this column, and then we have those things which are about longer term initiatives, some of which are not important, in which case we're simply wasting time. Why are we bothering with this? It's not urgent, and it's not important. But this is the quadrant that Dr. Covey says we want to spend our time in if we are to build interesting, robust, powerful, growing, scalable, valuable businesses. This is where we want to spend our time. Building the balance sheet of our firms. That might be training other people to succeed, developing our solution suite, our product suite. What do we sell? Building capabilities in our teams, enhancing referral relationships or client relationships, creating business development opportunities. These are things which add value in the long term. They're not particularly urgent, but they're very, very important. So something for you to think about. If you look at your calendar for the last week, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 months, where are you spending your time? This is an interesting thing to think about. And if we can move ourselves into this quadrant here, we're probably adding more value in our business. I'm going to finish. This is the last thing I wanted before we have some discussion. But what's the process then? It's all very well to talk about this, but what is the process for really getting good at delegation? And this is some work we do with clients, and maybe you'll consider something here. So if you're considering getting better at delegation, a good starting point is to just figure out, what are you doing day by day for the last couple of months? What have you been doing? What does your calendar say? What do your timesheets say if you keep timesheets? And what we find when we drill into this, here are some categories. Operations, Melissa, you talk about invoicing and finance and all that. That would be in the operational environment, budgeting, using IT. We have clients that own substantial firms, $20 million firms, and they do the software upgrades and they maintain the passwords. They do the payroll internally, right? It's quite a frequent thing. So operational, maybe internal finance. That's probably closer to what Melissa's doing, the budgeting, the invoicing, payroll, and so on. Then we get into production. Now, this is the work that your firms do for clients, right? Sometimes we term this as grinding. And this ranges from very, very high level, no one else can do that particular work, to very low level, which is there are a number of people that could do the work. So inside production, we have low level and high level work. And I ask you to think about, when you are doing production, are you doing work that is suited to your skill sets and your level of experience, and frankly, what you cost the firm? Because if you're senior in the firm, you probably cost the firm a lot, and we want you to do work that bills a lot. If you're doing work that is billing less than that, then you're probably not producing at the level you ought to do. And some people manage other producers. These are production managers. They do capacity planning. They schedule the work. They allocate the work among your team members. They quality control that work. They hold meetings internally to say what's going on with the projects we have underway. They build systems and processes and methodologies, and they use software and AI and things to get the work done more efficiently. So this is about managing production. Really, really important. Everything here is important, by the way. The question is where we're spending our time. And then another place we spend our time is working with clients, building relationships, talking to them, solving problems, looking for more work, getting referrals from those clients, and so on, right? This is another very important area. Some of you are reaching out to other referral partners, attending conferences, going to New Orleans in a couple of weeks, going to Berlin in a month or two, and trying to build relationships, communicating, marketing, and so on. And then some of you are actually involved in leadership. You are actually thinking about what your firm looks like 1 year, 5 years, 10 years from now, and what you want to put in place in terms of acquisitions, hiring, mergers, new services, new approaches. You're thinking about that. So this is the range of activities we often see people involved in. And if we are leaders and we are down this end, we are probably not delivering the value that we should as leaders. So think about where you're spending your time and where you may be able to get out of certain of these things to get a better outcome for your business. So we've defined what we do in one of those 7 areas. You might find that there are tasks you're doing which you should simply eliminate. Why are you doing that? It shouldn't be in the business. It made sense a year ago, but it doesn't make sense anymore. Stop doing it, right? There are other tasks you need to do, right? And that's because that's your job. And then there's the opportunity to delegate internally or to outsource or to subcontract. So now we have a decision matrix about what we want to do, which raises the question which often gets people stuck, right? Which is, okay, fine. Who is the target I'm going to delegate this to? I'm focused on delegation today. So who is that person? And this is where lots of doubt comes into people's minds. They say, well, yeah, but there's really no one who's got the skills or the experience, and everyone's busy, and I don't want to go and ask them. But this is where we can get a little lazy. And if your principles in your careers had not given you challenging work, you would not have progressed to where you are today. So we need to go and find those people that we internally or externally that we can delegate. And yes, there's risk, but we've talked about that. We need to overcome that. When we go and find these people, we then have to sell the idea to them. And selling the idea is really providing context. Why is this important? So, onboarding a client, what can be more important than that? We can argue that getting a client organized and in our systems, and so we can build them, so we can track the progress of our projects, is incredibly important. So is budgeting. So is managing the finances in our organization and understanding how we're performing as a business. It's incredibly important. So if I'm going to take that to someone else and say, I really want your help with this, I'm going to present it as a critical role. I'm also going to get really clear on the scope of what I'm asking them to do. This is where we can also get lazy. Hey, can you do some budgeting for me? Hey, can you track billings in my practice for a while? Hey, can you onboard some clients? That's not sufficiently clear on scope. I had an example the other day. This was one of our accounting clients. Please get together the financial reports for my upcoming board meeting. Well, it was a complete disaster because the person put together the wrong things, wrong time frame, and the next time they did it, please get the financial reports together. The priority is the P&L and the balance sheet. We don't need the cash flow statement. I want to check over the P&L before you send it, right? Because I need to make sure, and I need this by Friday. And please make sure the logo is correct because last time it was wrong. So you see what's happened here. It's just detail. Who's going to succeed more if we get this kind of instruction or this kind of instruction? It's obvious, right? If we can scope out the work better, we have a better chance. And Provide resources. We're not treating people like children. We're not going to do the work for them. We want them to figure it out, but we will provide resources. In this example, take a look at the reports we used last month and stick to that format. Jim can give you the access to the accounting system. Mary has the updated board list. And I'm here if you run into difficulties, but don't call me unless you run into difficulties. I want you to figure this out. It's really simple stuff, but the more detailed we are, the more likely we're going to get people to do good stuff. So we've given them resources. Measurable things get better results when we talk delegation, right? We want to be able to absolutely say, this job is complete. It's done. The budgets that Melissa needs are absolutely accurate now because we've got the format correct. The data entry is correct. The reports are in the exactly the way we want them. They incorporate the data that we want, etc. There can be no doubt about that. Otherwise, we will fail. What happens if people don't get this right? Think about in your role, if you didn't do something that was delegated to you, are there consequences, right? And what if you do a brilliant job? What if you exceed expectations, right? Are there rewards or acknowledgement? We want there to be, right? This, we're running businesses here. We're not running school summer groups, right? And there should be consequences for what we do. We encourage people to do great work, and if they do, we reward them. If they don't, there's some degree of accountability. We need to have a discussion about why we didn't get that done successfully. So there should be consequences. All of this is such simple stuff. We put things in writing. Why? Because it makes it more clear, but it also creates a record. And delegation works extremely well when that job, I imagine, Melissa, that your reporting and financing and budgeting and invoicing, it's recurring. For the rest of the time you are in practice, you're going to have to observe that. That could be 1 year or 10 years or 30 years, right? So why not build something that's reusable so that we are not always saying, oh, it's the end of the month, I need the reporting done. Likewise, onboarding clients is a recurring challenge. It's going to happen, hopefully, all the time, right? So let's build a template. Let's build a system, a methodology, so we don't have to rethink everything all the time. It's sharing the load. Get others involved. Managers in businesses sometimes think, I've got to carry the whole load of this business on my back. I've got to bear the burden. But delegating is good for everyone. And we want to make this not a us and them management and the rest mentality. We want a teamwork collaboration here. It's good for all of us if we're playing to our strengths and getting work done in the business. And some final thoughts. Trust. I remind you that all of us there was a time how many projects have I failed with? Dozens and dozens of projects that were handed to me where I really didn't do a very good job, right? But each time I learned a lot and I became better. And I'm sure that was the case for many of you. We learn by doing. So let's get other people involved in things because they will get better at what they do. And show a little bit of trust. If you go through this process, some things will work fabulously well, and sometimes it won't work as well. So go back and take a look and review and say, how could I have done that better? How could I have done that better? Because we want our colleagues to succeed, right? That should be the objective here. So how could I have improved the fact that the colleague would succeed? And now what am I going to do with the time I've created? How am I going to make that really, really useful? My final question to you is, so what are you going to delegate, right? But before you answer that, I'm going to stop sharing and just see. I covered a lot of ground quite quickly there, so I want to see if there are any questions or thoughts or comments, or I'd like to learn your experiences in delegating. What works for you? What's not working? What can we do better? Who's got something to say?
Okay, so we've got anybody that wants to ask any questions to Mark then?
Elder?
Alda.
Hi, Elder.
Hi. One thing you said really struck me. I wanted to laugh is that I do give people very detailed instructions or directions about what I would like them to do, how they should do it, which resources to go to within the organization to get information. I give them templates. I have review meetings to track what's been done and do some correction if necessary, put them on track again. However, when I get the final product, there'll always be some mistakes. And usually these are very silly mistakes, which suggest to me that the person sort of gave up at 90%. You know, the last 5% is always the hardest because by then you've done a lot and you're tired. And it's that last 5% where it's not like the way I wanted, I'm sorry to use that word, but the way I wanted or the way I expected it to come out. And then I have to sit at 10 o'clock at night and make those corrections because I need to send that out to somebody. What I could do is just build in even more time and say I want it 1 week in advance so I can review it, make sure it's correct, and then you have another week to correct. But I have to postpone sending things out because I find mistakes, silly mistakes, very silly, which suggests to me people are just not, you know, as careful as maybe I would be. And I ask if I'm being so careful to do this correctly, because money is on the line. At the end of the day, money is on the line when I'm sending out this report. Why are they not giving the same level of importance or attention as I am giving?
Great question, Elder. Just give us an example, please. What's an example of one of these tasks that you're talking about
Okay,
here?
it's a financial report. I used to do it myself. It takes a lot of time, and we need to follow up with a lot of people. So I have delegated it, and I've given instructions. I've given formats. I've shown previous year's reports and say I want it like this. So everything that I can possibly do to facilitate and make this process go smoothly, I have done. But it is the last 5%, and it's more like the formatting errors. You know, I wanted these rows to be in light blue and these to be in some other color. I wanted the final numbers to be in bold. I wanted only this number of decimal places. I wanted to footnote certain things. These are the areas where people are just not, or even checking formulas, you know, to make sure that the numbers add up correctly. So it's like somebody got tired and said, hey, I can't do anymore.
Yeah.
That's how I define it.
A lot of things. It's a great question, Elder, and thank you for that. A lot of things are coming to mind. And of course, I don't know the answer with your specific team members and all that. You know, some of the people I've worked with in professional services are extremely systems driven and methodical, and they document processes and they don't leave things to chance. Now, when you talk about I want these columns in bold and I want these in a different color and so on, there's often that is part of the system, it's part of the structure, it's part of the process, right? There can be no excuse for getting that wrong if you have provided them with those instructions. Now, what might happen sometimes is you change those instructions. I don't know if that ever occurs.
Not really.
Okay,
Not
it doesn't
required.
occur. So those things, you know, I thought you were going to say, yeah, there was some analysis here which they don't have the capability of doing, and they get it wrong. But you're talking about bold and real basic stuff, right?
Right, the basic stuff.
Okay, so if it's basic stuff, then it's something that we can document and we can set the rules. And I've often been impressed with people that get really, really serious about that. And they, you know, on the one hand, you're thinking, why do I have to write down that I want this column in bold? Why I shouldn't have to do that, right? They should be able to look at it and recognize that that's what I want. But if you don't build systems, you need exceptional people to do the work. If you build systems, you need less exceptional people to do the work. You know, they put a monkey in space in a spacecraft. Why? Because the systems are extraordinarily well organized and documented, right? And this is the idea. I don't know, I don't want to sound disrespectful of human beings, but the fact is, if we train people well enough, we can even train animals to do extraordinary things, right? So using that as an example, I wonder if there's more for you to do in that regard here. But here's another question. That's something to think about. And I think you should be open-minded about that. Tell me about your business. What kind of business do you have?
I'm an insurance broker, consultant.
Okay. Who owns the business?
My family does.
You do. Okay. So maybe these people just don't care as much as you. You're in
See,
the
I wouldn't even say
family,
they
right?
don't care. I wouldn't want to say that they don't care as much as I do. It is their responsibility, right? I recognize that there's certain things that are my responsibility, my work to do. Certain things are their work to do. And for example, last night I had this issue. I had to send a report out, and when I opened it, the mistakes were the things I had told this person, please fix them during the day. I had specifically told this person, these things are incorrect. Please clean it up and please send me the final report. And when I got it, they had not been fixed. So I took photos, sent them to her and said, I told you this, right? What happened? And she, oh, I'll do it right away. I said, no, don't bother because I've done it. I had to send it out. And this person has prepared this kind of report in the past. So it's not that she doesn't know what to do. It's about
So,
caring,
Elder,
perhaps. It comes
let me
down
ask
to
you
caring
this.
more than
What are
process.
the consequences? We talked about consequences before. So if I worked for you and I could send you stuff and I knew you would fix it and there were no consequences of me not doing it accurately, why would I change my behavior?
I know what you're saying. In the past, when I have, that's why I'm saying built in, but more time, make sure people fix things. I told her the consequence for us is money is on the line with this report. I will end up paying more if you have made a calculation error.
Whose money?
The
Again, this
company's
comes to
money.
the ownership, right? This comes to the ownership. I mean, I don't want to, I don't know enough about the situation, but you may have people that just they don't see the consequences enough, whether that's consequences to the business or consequences to themselves as individuals, right? And you have someone has submitted work to you and you've gone and fixed it for them. And why would they start to behave differently? But something for you to think about, Elder. Anyway, right? It's if what I don't want to hear, because I don't think it'll help you, is if we just get into the rut of saying, well, why didn't they do it? Why didn't they do it? That's not going to get us from where we are now to the next phase. We have to think about different approaches to the problem. But thank you for the question. It's a really good example. I wonder if someone else has got an idea or experience or
I think Neil's got something. He's got his hand up, and Michael has as well. So we'll come to Neil first, and then we'll jump on to Michael.
Thank you. And Mark, thanks. It's been an insightful session. I've attended another session of yours, which was also very good. Thanks for that. Actually, this thought occurred to me because of what Alda spoke about, which is how closely do recruitment practices or recruitment decisions tie into how you're able to delegate work, because some of what Alda is describing to me seems to be that the person may not have the right skills for the role that the person's doing. So my question really is that how important are recruitment processes for you to be able to delegate effectively? You're on mute, Mark.
Mark, you're on mute. You have to unmute yourself, please.
I was on mute. I don't know how that happened. Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you, Neil. That's a great question. So recruitment practices as influencing this idea of delegation. Yeah, so let's go back into the process. Ideally, here are the things that we want to do right. Number one, we want a well-defined organizational chart which depicts the roles that we have in our organization, client-facing roles, production manager roles, technical roles, high-level roles, administrative roles, client-facing roles, leadership roles, etc., right? Every business should have that. And each of those roles should have a job description associated with them. What are the tasks that that person has to do? So when we're recruiting, we are matching skills against those particular job descriptions. Now, what Elda or many others might have found, hopefully when she was recruiting, she was thinking, this person's going to be brilliant at doing these reports because they've got high attention to detail, they understand Excel, they understand analysis, whatever the particular tasks are, right? So yeah, we should take that into account. Then when they join, I think it's not just recruiting, Neil, because I think when they join, we get into onboarding and training. And, because people still have to learn something. And then we ask the question, to what extent were they properly onboarded and trained? And then managed, because over time, training is one thing, it's learning, but management is giving them direction and support. So yes, I think recruitment is key. And we might sometimes have either people who are simply not sufficiently skilled. We've all hired those people at some point, but we may have people who are in the wrong roles. So someone who is technically brilliant, who is asked to go and sell and write proposals on new work, might not fit well with that. Someone who is managing other people, who is technically brilliant but not good at managing, will not fit. So I think, yes, Neil, recruitment is important, but I think it extends beyond the recruitment process into onboarding, training, and management. There's another hand, Michael.
Hi.
Michael.
I just wanted to get your view on the generational divide, because personally, I'm finding a huge differential in quality every 10 years that it goes down. And I'm not sure why that is, but when you delegate it, as other people are finding, to younger members, it's slapdash, it's often wrong, it's never completed, and it's always somebody else's fault why they haven't done it. And quite frankly, if I produce the sort of work that most of the young ones are producing, I would have been walked out of the offices I worked at within half a day. But we're limited. So anyhow, I don't know if you've noticed that or if anybody else has.
Yeah, I'd love to hear some ideas on that. So I just wrote an article on hiring Gen Z people, right? What's that? Late 90s to 2010. That's the post-millennial generation, right? And actually, I interviewed a number of people, members of that Gen Z community, and a lot of things came out which are pretty stereotyped. The idea that Gen Z wants purpose in their work. They want a sense of greater good, and that was one thing that came out. The other thing was they are in fear because the world is a very uncertain looking place now in their view. I'm not defending this view, but the world is uncertain and unpredictable. And so the need to be supported is something that they value. So these are stereotyped ideas that you can read in a lot of articles. Practically speaking, my view, for what it's worth, is I'm a great believer in markets as an entrepreneur and as a capitalist, and ultimately things get worked out by the market. So you have clients that demand a certain quality of work and will pay a certain amount for that, and you have practitioners who will deliver work at that level. It doesn't matter if they're Gen Z or millennials or old or whatever generation they are. Ultimately, if your firm is not producing work of a certain caliber, then you will not be able to sell your services. And so the question is not really about Gen Z at all. It's about whether we can survive in our market by producing the work we do. Now, of course, modern managers might amplify this problem and make it about Gen Z. They might say, well, yeah, but I've got to be especially careful because I don't want to upset anyone, or I don't want to, I will be accused of being a bully if I tell people that I'd like them to do their work on time and accurately, like I had to do, right? Now, that's dangerous if we go down that path because, and you know, I'm not giving you human resources advice here because I'm not qualified to do so. But my view is it's less about Gen Z and less about generational and more about managerial prowess and consistency. And it's about the market that will ultimately decide what we can do. But I'm interested in anyone else's view on that.
I think we have another question from Renee, and then we're coming up to the hour mark. So I think we'll go to
Thanks, Rachel.
Renee, if that's okay, and then we might finish it up there.
Sure. Great question, Michael, by the way. Hi, Renee.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for everything. I'm actually in a similar situation to Alda, where you delegate tasks, they're not completed, and they just trust that you will finish the job because they know that you have to get it done. And it kind of ties into what Michael was saying as well, is the accountability of some people. How do you hold them accountable? Like, what are the consequences? It is kind of going into an HR related question, right? Because like you were mentioning as well, for us, it has consequences immediately because it's our business, it's our money. In the end, it's the success of the business. And it's also what you said, the quality of the work that we're presenting. And obviously it might go down because we are relying on other people to complete it for us. So it kind of goes like, it is very difficult. Like, how do we hold people accountable? What are the consequences that we could use in order to keep the quality of work alive, but also to delegate and trust that it's done right?
Yeah. Rena, did you work in another firm before is this your firm you're in now?
Yeah.
Did you work in another firm before you were in this firm?
Only short terms.
Okay, short terms, but you did. And did you produce quality work there?
I would like to say yes.
Why did you do that?
Because that's my own expectation of myself.
Right. So why? I mean, we could drill into that, right? And we need another.
That's a lot, but no, it's my expectation. But I understand that some people have other expectations, but I want good quality work, and it's nothing unreasonable. It's a contract that they've written 1,000 times, and suddenly it's just missing 100 points, and you're like, what is wrong? Because they know that you fix it. Like Alda was 10 p.m. You need to get it out.
Yeah. I'll finish up, and it's a great conversation. I'd love to continue this, but I think for me, what's coming out of this is consequences. If you keep doing the work for the people, and fixing their stuff, why would they change their behaviors? And I don't want to say it's uncomplicated. It is complicated, but as entrepreneurs, you can't expect people to care as much as you do, but we can create consequences for them and rules and boundaries. And ask yourself, why do I do quality work? Even if I were working for someone else, why would I do quality work? There's a lot in it. But Rachel, it's a very good group and very good questions and tough questions. And we need 4 hours next time. So
yeah, well, I mean, Mark's definitely going to do some of these again as well. So I think stuff like this will definitely come up in future. But also, I'll send you some of his resources as well. So I'll send you the article that you've wrote on the Gen Z stuff, and then put a couple of links in there to his LinkedIn page and website. So if you guys want to reach out directly to Mark, then you can do to carry on this conversation. But yeah, thank you so much, Mark. I'll send over a recording tomorrow of the call. So if anybody wants to listen back to it or share it with colleagues, and I'll send you a YouTube link, which you can share around with everybody.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks for setting it up. And thanks everyone for your good questions and paying attention.
Yeah, thank you. That was really great. Cheers, guys. Take care.
Have a great day. See ya.